there, it's Kevin with the Rogue Market here with April's update to all of the distributor sales and deals that I have access to. This video is going to be geared a bit more towards patrons, but I do think that if you're not a patron, you can still find this video useful, as I'll be talking about the current market price of these products, as well as the price that stores are going to be able to get them from distributors and how that's going to affect the prices going forward. So a little bit of shameful plug to the Patreon. If you're not a member, I highly recommend that you go and check it out over at patreon.com/roguedeckbuilder. There are many different tiers that can suit your needs. Basically, what you do is you sign up at a certain tier level and you have access to a certain amount of products per month. And in this video, I'm going to be going over the exact cost after fees of what these products will cost you if you are a patron. So again, there are a lot of postings. I try to stay pretty active here on the Patreon as well on the Discord server. So if you're looking for a little bit of more of an insider info to the things that are going on at the distribution level, this is a good place for you to be. All right, now that we've plugged the Patreon, I'm going to get back to the topic of this video, and I'm not going to say we're heading back into a time period where we're going to see just massive Amazon dumps for insanely cheap. I do think we're heading more into a bearish market. I don't like to use that term because I actually think we're going back to normal market. I think that COVID just messed up everyone's senses of how a market actually should be, with just insane gains. And then after the COVID crash, we had those insane losses. And now we're getting back to a normal ebb and flow of how the market used to work pre-COVID. If you remember back in those days, I know that's so long ago, now it's approaching, 3-4 years? We used to have a very consistent way the market worked with collectibles, collectible card games, especially Magic the Gathering. You would think that December, November, October would be the really hot times for collectible card games or TCGs. And for some reason, it's actually the late winter and early spring, kind of the tax return season, that has historically been the best time for sales for Magic the Gathering. So now that's starting to go. We're into April, and we're going to go into the lull of summer. So again, I don't like to call it a bear. I just like to call it returning to norm, because I'm expecting to see a lot more sales. Again, not at the same level that we saw with the post-COVID dumps the post apocalypse of reaping apocalypse, so I could call it, of 2022 and 2023, where Lord of the Rings just soaked up all the money and it didn't stop Wizards of the Coast just printing every product to 3, 4, 5 times the amount they should have been, and had a lot of dead products and just wasted products, when everything, comparatively speaking, was just garbage compared to Lord of the Rings. And then we had all those massive dumps with Wizards of the Coast trying to recoup that printing cost. So again, we've seen the market start to pick up. There has been some rejection of some of the latest sets. The Lost Caverns of Ixalan sold pretty well, and even Eldraine sold pretty good. But this latest set, Karlov Manor, has sold pretty horrible, and it actually shows the strength of the market, because they rejected Karlov Manor, and then it went into a bunch of products that were dumped on a market that had been cheap for a long time and now started to increase in prices. So I've created this little sheet for patrons. You can come over here and check it out if you are a patron. I have a link in the Discord as well as on Patreon, and it just shows the current April sales that I have going on. There is a flash sale going on tomorrow that is only good for Friday. It's not too interesting. There's like theme boosters and challenger decks and some Kamigawa Dynasty collector boosters. Those are Omega packs, which are a little bit discounted from their norm. I think I can typically get these for like $18, and so there's a slight sale for them to be $15 a pop. However, the good sales, I think, are going to last for quite some time here in April, and I'm going to go over the ones that I like. So I've got the ones highlighted that are absolute trash in pink. They're below market price right now, so I've got it separated here of what you'd be paying at TCG Market and the price that you can get at a distribution level, and then the difference here on the right-hand column. So the ones in green are at least $20. You'll save about $20 or more on these products. Probably should have done a little percentage-wise thing, but I use $20 as the cutoff for when I actually hide these green, and the green ones I'm actually going to go over here. So there is still some embarrassing things for stores and distributors at this point, when things like Crimson Vow collector boosters, they can't even give like a good discounted price on them to even come close to the market price, with those products still struggling in the 140s and 130s for that era's collector boosters. So New Capenna, Crimson Vow, Midnight Hunt, you still have even Forgotten Realms in this mix. That era of collector boosters is not aging well. I guess the the answer to everyone's question of which one's going to age better, set boosters, draft boosters, or collectors, well, collectors are not doing good compared to the other ones. They're the ones that are actually not. And I still think if you look at EV, if someone would actually to really pump out the numbers, I'd be very, very surprised if collector boosters at this low cost didn't have more value in them. But I guess when they print, I mean, the foil slot used to have a foil multiplier, and now that no longer is true. And now the boreless and things like that aren't having multipliers. Maybe if you crunch the numbers, maybe draft and set are the better route to go in this scope of things. So anyway, that is a topic for another day. Before I get rambling on those topics, I'm going to try to center this one and hit this one home of what we want to talk about, which is the current sales. So the first one to go over is the Dominaria Remastered Collector Boosters, and I actually still do like this one. If you see, they're going for about 200 now is the lowest one you can get on TCG Player. For whatever reason, these suckers are selling, and they were really low a few weeks ago. I could get these down for like 150 is what I think I was offering them. I mean, they are super low from distributors, but distributors have not only increased them once, but twice in the past 2 weeks. So last week they increased them, and then this week they again increased them. And if I am looking correctly, you can still get in on Dominaria Remastered at 180 for the collector boosters. So again, it kind of sucks that we're out of the 140s and 150s, but I still think this is relatively a good price for this set. Again, this is what Wizard of the Coast, just the overprinting. This was not a bad set. You had things like the Vampiric Tutor and the Force of Will. I mean, the whole line of the tutors in this. You have a lot of very powerful reprints. The mana base isn't horrible, like a lot of people did complain about this, but I mean, it's the check lands, and the check lands often do get in standard, and they are used in Commander. But one of the problems with lands now is every Commander deck is printing these lands. Now they fall into the threshold of the $4, where Wizard of the Coast is like, oh, this card's under $4, we can throw it in a Commander deck now. It's going to be printed from now on in all of those Commander decks, in my opinion. So maybe the mana base in this one is not that great, but you still have a lot of iconic cards like the Birds of Paradise, and like I said, the tutors and whatnot in this set. So Dominaria Remastered, I think is a pretty good steal for the collectors. You can still get draft boosters for pretty cheap, but the spread on TCG Player, the collectors, is a better route to go for that. So again, you could be saving about $20 per booster box against market price. So I kind of do like that one. Again, it is a little bit late because they were offered cheaper the last few weeks, and always a feel bad if you get in later from those really low prices, the bottomed out prices, but it's still a good time to get in on these. A couple of products that are okay, I'm not going to talk too much about them, are going to be Crimson Vow set boosters and the Midnight Hunt set boosters. Both of them are on sale, and they are, for whatever reason, they are going up. Draft boosters as well. These have approached back up to $100. Now, this is supposed to be wholesale cost. Distributors haven't been selling them for the original wholesale cost for quite some time. They had been dumped all the way down in the 60s, 70s on Amazon at one point, but they have been creeping upwards. I'm not going to go over like the cards in this. This one is a little bit awkward. There are a lot of cards from these two particular sets that do see Pioneer play, so there's going to be some, some value long term for these particular products, but this is going to be one of the sets that does rotate, so it doesn't have as long of a time in standard that some of the other sets that aren't rotating do have. And so a little bit of a caution about these two. Yes, I think that set boosters and draft boosters, maybe set boosters in particular, might be a good one going forward because they're done and over with, and this is the only time period now that you're going to be able to get set boosters. So maybe that they'll age a little bit better than draft. We'll have to see exactly how this one will fare versus the draft. The draft are also on sale, but the set boosters are a pretty good deal right now for both the Midnight Hunt and the Crimson Vow. One product that I absolutely do like is the March of Machines. So March of Machines is a product that was absolutely just fire sold, dumped on Amazon and at distribution level. There was a time when we could get these for $65, I believe, for a draft booster. Maybe it's even cheaper than that. And then there was at one point we get pre-release kits where it came to like $1 a pack. They were like under $6 for a pre-release kit. And I wish I would have gone all in on those because this set was actually really powerful. They have the multiverse slot in them that have really good reprints that are actually starting to go up. And it is a set that sees a lot of the high-powered cards in standard right now. Again, this was just a sleeper set. It was mashed between in Lord of the Rings and a bunch of other products that everyone lost their minds about, and this one just got forgotten about. And then, of course, Aftermath was thrown on top of this, and I think this is the point where the wallet fatigue was at an all-time peak. During the history of Magic the Gathering was March of Machines. So that's why it struggled, is not necessarily the contents in this box, but it was just a bad time for this box to be released compared to all the other things on the market. But if you actually do look at the data here, it's selling pretty decent. I mean, you're seeing a couple per day being sold, which is stretching the supply here. And within just a few short months, it's gone from 75 to $90 for the draft boosters. And the collectors are also on sale. So if we go back over here, the collectors, I think we have to go down to this one. The collector boosters are $185. That was like the original cost for March of Machines collectors, is about $185 to $190, $195 is what distribution was selling them at. And so this is kind of neat with today's age. Again, we're entering into that summer bear where prices could come down again. And then maybe we'll look back at this video and like, yeah, this definitely wasn't the time to come in, but we're starting to see collector boosters like Ixalan and some of the other really good ones have that slight increase. Like, I'm not expecting most Magic the Gathering products to have massive increases like we saw back, during like even Ravnica Allegiance days, where a few months after the set was like 6 months down the road, we already saw increases in like set or draft boosters. There was even set boosters back in that day, but those type of products did go up, and they're supposedly out of print at the distribution level. So March of Machines collectors are pretty much out of print. They don't reprint them again after their initial run of them, and so starting to see some of these go back up or even more than their wholesale distributor cost. That's kind of a good sign for these products. And the collector boosters from March of Machine I do like for the reasons I stated. For the draft boosters, there's a lot of high impact cards in this, and people actually do tend to like the kind of slicker versions of these cards for their commander decks. So this one I think is going to age well in the scope of like collector boosters, and it was just a bad time period for this set to be released. I think that looking back on this one, it might be like a War of the Spark, where it's going to be very popular with all the legendary creatures that were printed in this, and commander players are going to eat this set up for years to come. So you can kind of see the sales data is pretty decent too. A lot of them actually selling in the 200s to 225s, and again, I think it's a good price to get in on. All right, so this one is one that confuses me, because I actually don't like this product, because I really think there's billions of this out there. I think that they expected conventions to be a bigger deal, that Wizards of the Coast was really going to hit a bunch of them, and then we had COVID happen, and then we had just a convention lull where commander conventions weren't as popular as they once were. It was kind of people attended a few commander conventions and decided that they aren't as great as they thought they were. Magic really shifted. Why I'm picking on Commander here is we had, back way before I even got into Magic, we had conventions being a big deal around Grand Prix, and then of course around the kind of the Pro Tour circuit for 1v1 Magic. They were very, very popular. I mean, cities would sell out. You'd have thousands of people attend, which was good at that time period for Magic the Gathering. The vendors would all show up, and it would just be a very robust scene. And then Magic tried to do a little bit of pivot to where it was more commander focused, and it kind of forgot about the 1v1 players, which I think have more of a reason to go to those conventions. So they printed these mystery boosters basically as a kind of a fill-in product, because one of the most popular things to do at these conventions was to do what was called mystery drafts, which was taking random packs from the history of Magic the Gathering and drafting with them. And they were running out of product like Shards of Alara. And this is before they did like remastered. Now that I'm sure they're going to remaster everything, and so they're going to get those cards back into these little mystery drafts anyway through remasters. But during that time period, they printed this product to try to supplement that. This would be okay. People can do actual just mystery drafts with this product, and it was insanely popular at first. And these boxes went for a lot of money. And then we had. I think the Channel Fireball at the time, if I believe, was supposed to run all of the conventions, and there was a little bit of I don't know what happened with the relationship with CFB and Magic, and how this product was like mismanaged. But then it got back into traditional distribution. They gave this to WPN stores that were supposed to go for a convention, and then of course crashed the price because there was a lot more of these things than expected. But if you look at the sales data, it's also not terrible. There's quite a bit of sales in the past month for this mystery booster, and they've increased pretty good, a whole $10 in the last month, on average for these mystery booster boxes. I don't think the value is there. Someone might crunch the numbers and maybe there's value in them. They do tend to sell pretty well at our store. I'm not sure other store owners may chime in here, but they are like a product that people often do buy just for that experience of like, oh, I've never opened one of these before, or I like the last few that I opened. And that actually plays a lot more into sealed product, is this whole stripping of the supply where, every day there's one less booster box because, some store cracked it. And it has it going for this one. But I want to caution everyone that I think the supply of these suckers are massive. So I'd be very, very careful with mystery boosters. I think there will be more sales in the future with this one. I would be cautious with this one just for the fact that we don't even know how much of this crap's out there, based upon what Wizards and their hubris at the time of thinking they're going to have these 5,000 attended conventions over and over and over. Break numbers, break numbers, break numbers, and these were printed to meet those demands. And then it basically went down to nil. And now they're starting to revive those conventions, but it's going to be I mean, Wizards has a lot of PR to do. They have a lot of, they've really screwed up their brand as far as conventions is concerned, and to really get people excited to play again at the local store level. And I mean, really in the past couple of years, Magic has been on kitchen table fumes it's still, I'm underestimating how strong kitchen table grew during the Lord of the Rings era, like leaps and bounds. But however, there's a lot that they've missed out on as far as the more competitive and local store. And this product was definitely more geared towards those ones. Hope that makes sense. Kind of rambling here with that one. Anyway, yeah, Mystery Booster, pretty flat. There are some, I guess, decent cards in here, but can you get them from all of these? Can you get mana crypts from these? I don't even know. I mean, it looks like there's some good stuff in these mystery boosters, but I can't remember if there is mana crypts in ones and not in others or not. But $180 card, that's pretty decent. And then we have the Universes Beyond Doctor Who. I like to highlight this one because now Warhammer and Fallout and Lord of the Rings are no longer available from distributors. I'm saying that with quotations and kind of a wink wink because we've seen Warhammer get reprinted or re-released over and over and over, and every time we think it's the last wave of Warhammer decks, then they sneak another one. So Fallout, Warhammer, Lord of the Rings, I'm not going to say they're out of print. I'm not going to say they're not going to be available again at distribution level. All I'm telling you right now is what I know, what I can see by looking at what distributors have in stock. And again, I use most distributors. A few of them I don't use, so I do have access to the bulk of them of what they're selling these for. And so Doctor Who's the last one that's available right now. I do expect Fallout to have more because, of course, it's the newest one, and they've all had subsequent waves. However, Doctor Who, if you're thinking Warhammer, Lord of the Rings, Doctor Who, I would say is probably the one that had the smallest release because I think this is the least overlap that Magic would have with another IP. And I think if I were Wizards, this is the one I would have been more conservative on. So, take that with a grain of salt, whatever you think here of their print numbers for Doctor Who. However, what's interesting about Doctor Who is that they are packed full of a lot of value in here of these very, very played cards in Commander. So, there is some value to be had by people even breaking these down. And I still think the price is pretty decent for what you get for many of these cards in here. So, this is another thing I've been noticing. Our hottest product at our store by far is the Commander decks. And even if they don't have the value in them, these suckers sell because people are, the Commander decks is actually a chore to get the cards you want and put them I actually have people buy these just for the cards in them because like I'm going to need some of these cards for other decks, and they're so lazy to sort their own collection a lot of times, or really manage their own collection, that oftentimes is rather would buy. Oh, I need another one of these propagandas, so I'll just buy the entire deck, and then like, oh, I'm going to use these decks, here and there, these cards here and there. I need these mana base from this one. What's one? I'm building a blue black deck. What's one of these commander decks has a blue black mana base, and they'll buy it just for that. I'm telling you that it impresses me every time about how mismanaged like a lot of these commander players are with their collections, that they'd rather just go this route rather than do a little bit of elbow grease of sorting things out. So anyway, I think this is a product that has a lot of value in it, and makes sense at its price point. Again, I think you can get in on like 150 for these Doctor Who commander decks. This is, I think, where they sold originally, if I'm not mistaken. I think they've bumped up to 150, 160, around that range, depending on distribution. So yeah, but that one's a good one. And last but not least, there's a couple other things that are interesting. There's the Pioneer Challenger deck displays that are on sale for a slight decrease. This one is interesting because we are heading into Pioneer as the RCQ season, and many of these are still relevant, like the Phoenix deck. However, Phoenix did get another reprint in the Dominator Remastered, as well as it had a reprint in like the promos they sent out to local game stores. And so some of these decks are very, very bad for the contents in them, but there are like Thoughtseizes, there are a lot of staples. And I mean, Lotus Field is a pretty complete deck right out of the box. There are some upgrades you need to, but most of the expensive cards you do get in the Lotus Field combo. And so yeah, Challenger decks are going on sale again. It's funny, I had a comment on one of my Rogue Deck Builder video about like, I'm on record stating how much I hate these Challenger decks because of their delivery, not really of how, like, they're a good idea in a sense that having accessible decks for people to play the game. However, I think that how their delivery of all the Challenger decks has just been very head scratching, because when they first did them with Standard, it was like cards that were going to be rotating in 6 months. And so it's like, okay, so people pick these up and then they rotate. And now that isn't as bad now if they do Challenger decks with Standard, because they'd have that extra year before the cards rotated. And then they did Pioneer, and then Pioneer the decks became so obsolete. It was like Orzhov Aros is one that I'm just like, that was like a flavor of a week, and then it wasn't even relevant. And a lot of these other ones too, and they become really weird. Like, and then I've argued with people too, the intro level to Pioneer, I guess if you're going to play a Pioneer tournament, it'd be a good start, but Pioneer's not supposed to be an intro level format. It's supposed to be a format with the people that already know how to play the game, because it's very cutthroat. It's got very high powered cards, and you're competing against expensive decks at that point. So having like an intro Pioneer is a very, very rough product to actually have a good delivery on. I mean, either you crash the market with putting or you have to sell them for so much without crashing the market. Like, there's no win scenario for Wizards here. And I think they really mismanaged the delivery of Challenger decks because they were overprinted. They were stocked like crazy at places like the Targets and the Walmarts and whatnot. And in my opinion, if they would want to do this product, it should have been for events. Like, they should have offered these to stores at a very limited window for events. And if people are like, well, then stores would have just broke them down for singles. Okay, then they would have broken them down to singles, and that's on the store. But these should have been offered for stores to give their players an intro level into these formats like Standard and Pioneer, and not something that I think should be like an evergreen sit on the shelf forever. There are plenty of other products that can, ease people into Magic the Gathering better than Challenger decks. And again, people are going to disagree with me until we're blue in the face, but I will, again, stick my finger back in your face and say, okay, if this product was so wonderful, how come it's still being blown out by distributors? And how come this has been a product that has been one of the worst performing products since it's been printed? I mean, the first Challenger decks were really popular, and ever since then, they've just become worse and worse and worse as far as accepted by the market. And the contents, in my opinion, have been getting better and better and better. So the evidence is just there. You can argue with me, but you're going to lose this argument. They're at distribution level. They've been at distribution level for a discounted price for as long as I can remember, and it's just a product the market has rejected. Now, with that other said, I don't know, I'm getting into this kind of rant with the Challenger decks. They are really, really good to get, especially this Challenger deck 2022. I think it has some pretty decent cards in them. So ignore the white one, it's trash. It has all bulk in it. I mean, all these cards have been reprinted multiple times in various things. But the Dimir Control is very interesting. I did an entire video. You can go back to my last video that had a lot of views on it about why I like this Dimir Control. And then you actually get like the Gruul Stompy with the Goldspan Dragon. I mean, that pays for itself right there with the Goldspan. And the Rakdos Vampires also gets interesting because of the pathway and the Den of the Bugbear. Both of those are going to age very, very well. Because I mean, Den of the Bugbear is played in every red deck in Pioneer, and even seen has it seen modern play? I'm not sure if it's modern, but it definitely sees a lot of Pioneer play, and Commander decks love it. And the pathways too. They've really solidified themselves as one of the better lands. And I mean, Pioneer is really being defined by pathways. You have to kind of pick your poison of being shocked, the fast lands, or having options with pathways. And most decks have a bit of each in them. And that makes like the ideal mana base right now. So instead of fetch shock like modern, it's pathway, fast land, shock land in Pioneer. And so far, none of the other lands have really pushed those ones out of the slots. And there's some very interesting things too with Rakdos Vampires being the #1 deck in Pioneer now. This has not a lot of the expensive cards, of course, that it needs for that deck to function, but it does have the commons and uncommons, and who knows at what point do those cards actually get kind of outstretched from the market, from the demand, and they actually go, up more than a quarter that they're currently going for. So anyway, there's my overview, kind of a more rambling long video about the products right now that are at distributor level. I'll try to get back to posting the daily dells on this channel, as well as giving more market analysis. I appreciate everyone that stuck around. And again, if you are interested in getting more of the behind the scenes or good deals, go over here to patreon.com/roguedeckbuilder. If you're even a $2 patron, you do get full access to the Discord, as well as you do get to see all the posts on Patreon that aren't behind a wall. So I appreciate all the support. This has been Kevin with the Rogue Market. Thanks for watching.